Hey everybody, welcome to Mission Fitness. And today we have a very special guest with us. He is a renowned international wrestler, he's an actor, he's a Hollywood stunt person, and he has his own training and event company. Mr. Luke Hawx. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, got a live event company, pro wrestling events all around. Well, not just the city, not just the state, but the United States. And actually, we ran some in Mexico as well. So thanks for having me.
All right, glad you can make it with us. So, what? Tell us, how did the wrestling start? Was it something that you were involved in as a kid?
As far as Wildkat or just wrestling in general?
Wrestling in general, yeah.
It's all I ever wanted to do. So it's kind of a basic answer. It's just my dream. So I grew up very passionate about wrestling. I always wanted to be a professional wrestler, so I chased it from an early age.
Did you do it in high school, or?
I did for a little bit, but I had my first son and when I was 16. So I stopped wrestling. I started working full time, and I was going to school full time in high school. And I get out half a day. I get out at noon, and then I go to work. And I'd work 2 or 3 jobs at that time. I get out of school at 12, and then I go to a travel agency and work from like 12:30 to 5 at the travel agency, and then I go to KB Toys from like 5, which is at Lakeside Mall, right across the street from the travel agency, and get off at 10, and then do it over again every day.
So basically, you had 3 jobs, including school.
Yeah. And I hated school.
So did you compete in college, or?
No, I never went to college. As soon as I graduated high school, I moved across country. I moved to Oakland, California, and started training for professional wrestling with a guy named Vic Grimes out there. He was the ECW wrestler, WWE wrestler, so he was 470 pounds at the time when he started training me, and I was about 140 pounds. So that was a good fun day where I'd just get tossed around every day. And it really we started in his backyard because when I went out there, he didn't have a ring. He was wrestling on the circuit worldwide. I had his address. I used to mail him stuff all the time, and I had his phone number, and I'd bother him. He knew who I was because I would bother him so much, and I just got out a road map because we didn't have phones with GPSs back in those days.
Right.
So I got a road map out and drove to Oakland, California, and knocked on his door and said, "Hey, I want you to train me." And he looked at me and said, "You're an effing moron." And the effing didn't mean freak or fun. It meant the other words. So my heart sunk in my stomach because I didn't want him to think that I was a moron. I wanted him to think that I had a lot of drive and a lot of passion.
Yeah.
And what he meant by it was, now that I'm older, I understand it more, was he couldn't believe I just took a chance and drove across country and knocked on his door, for him to tell me to go screw off somewhere. But he told me, "I can't train you. I don't have a wrestling ring." And I was like, "Well, I don't care. I'll train in your backyard until we get into a ring or we get whatever." And basically what happened from there was we'd start doing some basic training in the backyard, like grappling and stuff like that, the things you can do. And he would take me with him to shows, and we would train before the shows. We'd get there a few hours early, and we'd work out in the rings a few hours early, and that's kind of how it all kicked off and started for me.
So he literally took you under his wing.
Oh, yeah, it took me under his wing, and I actually, he just called me before I came here, so we just spoke, and we speak oftenly now. He doesn't wrestle anymore. He just had his 50th birthday, and he lost a lot of weight, so he's under 300 pounds now, and he drives trucks for a living now. So it's cool. It's cool that we keep in touch. I always go out to California still and see him, but that's kind of like my second home in the Bay Area. So I appreciate it, man. He didn't have to do it, and he really taught me the ins and outs of the business, and he taught me just how to really chase after what I wanted. And I mean, I already had that drive and that passion, right? But like he was one. I didn't get a lot of positive criticism from anybody when I first started. Everybody kind of got that, "Oh, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Oh, why don't you get a real job? Why don't you go be an electrician? Why don't you go be this?" And he was one of the guys who was like, "Hey, if you want to do this, then stick with it. I believe you got something with you. You can do it." And to get that positive reinforcement, I mean, he was crucial on me at times too, as needed to be, right, as a good coach would be. But at the same time, he was one of those ones who gave me hope and said, "Hey, if you work hard, you can achieve this, and you have talent, but you have to work hard." So I wasn't scared to work hard, and one thing led to another, and time after time, more opportunities. The harder I worked, the more opportunities I got.
Well, wanting to be a professional wrestler is the equivalent to wanting to be an actor or an astronaut or something that's a little more beyond the everyday.
Right.
So you needed someone to have that encouragement, because how many people are actual professional wrestlers that could,
Or professional athletes, If you ask any kid, and I do this often because I speak at a lot of high schools, a lot of middle schools and things of that nature, and anytime I ask the class, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do after school? They all want to be celebrities. They all want to be superstars. Rarely do I get, I mean, the most common answer I'd get outside of that is like a nurse or a veterinarian or something. But I mean, for the most part, they want to be in music. They want to be, NFL players.
Right.
And the question I ask them is, what are you doing now that's going to lead you to that future? And the answer I always get is nothing.
Right.
They're not playing football. They're not playing because their coach is a jerk or because of this. And it's all some BS excuse to not go into working hard, which it all falls back on, right?
Right.
A tough coach is usually a good coach. And unfortunately, it's a sad thing I see in society nowadays is that I'm almost 40 years old, so I don't know how old you are. So I say nowadays,
49.
how old?
49.
49, okay.
Yep.
So I say nowadays because I don't know how tough it was back then, but I feel like as time goes on, people are getting lazier and lazier and wanting things handed to them instead of getting out there and...
I think you have a point with that because especially in the advent of social media and just we see every aspect of celebrities' lives, and I tell young actors, if you have to be in this for the right reason, you have to appreciate the art, and in your case, you have to appreciate the work and the dedication that it takes and the feeling to be a professional athlete. If you're in it for the stardom, you're probably going to fall flat on your face because that's only going to take you so far. What do you think about that?
100%. What I find nowadays is that a lot of people are trying to latch on to somebody else. So instead of putting the work in, they want to be your friend because they think this guy's going to pull me up. If I'm this guy's friend, this guy's going to give me an opportunity.
Right.
And that's basically, it's cutting corners, but in reality, what they don't understand is nobody's going to, just because someone's nice to you doesn't mean they're going to pull you up.
Right.
These guys, hard workers, want to be surrounded around other hard workers or somebody who's going to be their yes man and do something for them, but you're never going to get anything out of that position. They want somebody to help them to do things they might not be able to do themselves, because they might not have time, right? And that's where you're going to stay. If you want to be something in life, you should be focusing on that goal, and you should be doing all the work you can to put in the work towards that goal.
Right.
At an early age. My son I had my son when I was 16. Like I said, I was young. I was foolish, right? Luckily, things turned out great because not only me, but I was very fortunate for his mother, for his grandmother, and for his aunt who helped me raise him, and they did a lot of work while I was gone. And I mean, I was gone a lot because I was chasing wrestling. And I'd like to say that I put my son first, but in reality, that wasn't always the case because there's a lot of times where I was out of town and I missed a lot, and he knows this, and we talk about it often. But what I didn't realize is that my work ethic got passed on to him, and he became a multiple-time state amateur wrestler, state champion, and then, all that fed into his pro wrestling days now that we're actually a tag team. We're a father-son tag team, which has never really been done before. It's been done in the past, like with the Armstrongs or in the early days in like the 80s and stuff, but it was really an over his time limit wrestler teaming with his young and upcoming son, and it happened 1 or 2 times. It didn't happen full time. I haven't hit 40 yet. I'll be 40 next year. But I feel like I haven't hit my prime yet. And my son's got 3 years. He's going on his 3rd year in professional wrestling. So we're a full-time active tag team. We're multiple tag team champions in different places, which is really cool because we travel the roads together. And I see that my work ethic has fallen on him, which is cool. And all the sacrifices I made when I was younger that I had to leave him for, he appreciates now because he benefits off them.
And he also gets to see that it's not just glitz and glamour.
Oh, he knows
it's work, and it's I'm sure a lot of pain, involved in physical pain. I mean, looking on TV, you guys make it look so easy when you fall on that bouncy, ring. But
it's not bouncy. I tell people
that's some serious stuff there.
Oh yeah, and I was just telling somebody about the ring today. As I said, it's basically the same thing as a boxing ring, but the thing is, with a boxing ring is it has the boxing ring has pillars underneath it, like thin, just steel pillars that go on down, hundreds of them, right? A wrestling ring doesn't have the pillars. It's just a steel frame, and then the 2x12s or 2x18s, whatever it is that run across them, and then a thin canvas, about that thin on top of the wood. So it's not a trampoline.
Right.
It just gives a little bit of, so when you hit, it makes a loud thud. That's what it does.
And it's not like you have all this padding on you either.
And it knocks the wind out of you.
So when you get someone who's 300 pounds that's jumping on you, or
You see it all the time. I mean, look at how many injuries, even the deaths that happen. It's something where an injury is unavoidable, and at some point it's going to happen, and you're always hurt. You just learn to adapt to the pain because there's never a time where it doesn't hurt.
Right.
But you learn, it's like a football player, right? It's just like putting your body in a car crash over and over and over again. But the human body is a wonderful thing, and it learns to adapt to pretty much anything. You can, look what the Navy SEALs go through, right? You look at the Navy SEAL training. If you try to take the average person off the street and just put them in that, they're going to die. They're going to die. I mean, they'll pass out. They'll die. There's nobody.
But if you do the proper training and the food regimen, nutrition, that's a big thing
everything,
too.
Sleep, everything. There's a lot of patterns that are involved in properly taking care of yourself for any kind of physical attribute. Whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. I was just watching the Last Dance with Michael Jordan, that documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And he talks about the difference between his baseball training and his basketball training and how they were two separate workouts. And when he tried to transition into baseball, his body wasn't ready, so he had to do the baseball regimens. And then when he went back to basketball, his body was used to the baseball regimens, and his body wasn't ready to get back in the NBA, so he had to do it.
It's literally training each muscle cell, retraining.
Exactly.
To do what you need it to do when you need to have it done.
Right, and if you're a hard-working athlete, it goes hand in hand, right? You can train your body to do anything, but we go back to that, what we talked about earlier, hard work.
Right. So this goes into, did this parlay into your stunt work, or?
It did. So in 2006, I had a TV show on MTV called Wrestling Society X, and I had an opportunity to film a movie in Mexico from there, and I thought it was BS, right? I thought it was crap. Because in Hollywood, there's a lot of people who like to talk a lot and hear themselves talk, and they make false promises. Wrestling, to any form of entertainment. So about 3 months went by after I initially met the producer and director, and I got a call out the blue. And they said, hey, we want to fly you down to Mexico for a week on these dates, and we're going to pay you a certain amount of money. And I was like, oh, my God. So
it's Hollywood,
yeah. So I jumped on it and I did it, and I quickly realized that just because I was a wrestler, I thought going into it that just I know how to wrestle, I know how to fight, that this film fighting would be extremely easy.
Yeah.
Well, when I went back and watched everything I did, it looked like crap. And then I came to the realization really, really, really fast that I need to learn this aspect of film fighting. I need to learn how to film
combat,
fight. Right. So to make it look good, especially if I wanted to dabble in it more, which I did.
Yeah.
It kind of lit a little bug in me to do that more. So I filmed for a week there. Everything went great. They made some great edits to make me look the best they could. And I came back home, and I went back out to L.A. again, and I had a meeting with a friend of mine. Not a meeting, I was just with a friend. And Danny Trejo, the actor, was with us. And he goes, well, why aren't you doing any films in Louisiana or the works in Louisiana? I said, man, I don't know anything about films down there. I don't know how to get involved in them. So another producer, young guy, was with us, and he said, actually he wasn't with us at the day. I was with him the next day. And, Danny was giving me the rundown, because Danny had actually filmed here in the 70s and 80s, I think, and he was telling me all the stories about being in Fat City, and it was really cool, and telling me about, just film work. And he's like, man, you got to get involved in some film work. You should do it, and you should, kind of giving me some pointers. So the next day I was with another producer buddy, and he goes, man, I got a really good actor named Louis Hertham who lives in Baton Rouge. He lives in Santa Monica, but he also lives in Baton Rouge. He bounces back and forth. He says, I should connect you two. So I was like, okay, cool. So he connects me with Louis, and Louis has been in everything, like Stephen King's The Mist. His first big break was Murder, She Wrote. So I went and had...
It goes way back.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I went and had breakfast with Louis, and I said, I want to be an actor, like everybody else. Just like everybody else. They want to be an actor. He goes, well, did you take any acting classes in school? Did you do arts and anything like that? I said, no. It's like, well, how the hell are you going to be an actor if you haven't practiced acting? Yeah. I'm like, well, I never thought of that. I'm like, I mean, I do wrestling. I I act in front of a live audience 24/7, a different kind of acting, but we have to turn on our personalities and we have to do live interviews. Yeah. So we have to do exactly, it's theater. She's like, yeah, you have that credibility, but he's like, you ever think of taking acting classes? I said, I would love to take some acting classes. And honestly, I never looked into it because I didn't know much about it, but I never had the ambition that I was going to go in that direction, right? Everything I was focused on was professional wrestling. So he goes, what about stunts? How do you feel about stunts? I said, man, I would actually love to do some stunts because that's just action. You know, I didn't want to be Tom Hanks.
Right.
I wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wanted to be Sylvester Stallone. I wanted to be an action guy and just a badass, right? This all-around movie badass that just you see and you can adapt to, right? Those guys are iconic.
That guy jumping out the windows,
right,
rappelling down buildings, yeah, exactly.
Just these cool action scenes. So he says, I have a buddy of mine who's a stunt coordinator here in Louisiana, and he's holding some open tryouts. I think it was a week or two later. He's like, why don't you be my guest and come to the tryouts? So I went to the tryouts, and I was the only guy out of all the people that showed up that they kept. And stunt coordinator started training me. So for a few years, I would go train nonstop on the North Shore with a guy named Phil Odell. And Phil taught us everything from stunt fighting. I mean, it's exactly what I needed, right? And it all went back to, not purposely, but it all went back to what I knew I needed, because when I did that first film, I knew my fighting was terrible. You go back and watch it, right? It was called Dead Sleep Easy. I wasn't comfortable, although I thought I was. And then I went back and watched it, and it was terrible. So I knew I needed to get really good. I needed to get better. I needed to train. And Phil taught me all that. Phil taught us how to film fight. Phil taught us high falls, rappelling, ratchets, air rams, all these crazy things you do in stunts. And then I started taking some acting classes. And after a few years of training, I never got an opportunity for a movie again until 2009. So we go from 2006 all the way to 2009. All this time I was putting in work to get a new opportunity. Yeah. And 2009 I got my first opportunity on a movie called Blood Out. So we did that, and that snowballed into another movie. And that's when I first got SAG'd in 2009, my Screen Actors Guild card. Snowballed into another movie, snowballed to another movie. It was just, you work with somebody, you do a good job, then you work with somebody else where they say, oh, you fit the description for something else. And then next thing you know, eventually I started getting some, hey, Luke's pretty good with dialogue. So they would throw me a line here or there. Yeah. And that kind of got put in, and I was, like I said, I was taking acting classes as well. But the dialogue started coming along as stunt acting roles. It wasn't just an actor, right? Which was cool. So you go, say a couple lines, and then you get shot. Or you get in a fight, you walk in a bar, you hit on a girl, and then...
and that actually says a lot about the work you put into it, because there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of actors who are up for the roles, even here in New Orleans, on the smaller scale in terms of the casting. So the fact that you put in the work, it did pay off.
Right, and it led into, in 2017, which was the best year probably, because... I was in the two biggest movies of 2017. I had acting roles in both of them, as Logan and Fate of the Furious, Fast and Furious 8. So I had acting roles in both of them, and I was the only actor to be in both of those movies, and they were the two highest grossing movies of 2017. So that was really cool. And I've been in over 80 productions. And the short span, I say short span, I think I've been in since, I don't know if you want to count 06, because that's when I got my feet wet and did that first film, but I really didn't start until 2009, where I started working more frequently.
Yeah, when you learned
after I learned
what you needed to know to be able to be successful in the film, so when you see it, it's like, oh, okay, it's clean, it's specific, Yeah,
that's a big difference between 2006, even 2009 to now. So I got a film coming out on Netflix soon with Jamie Foxx called Power. I think they'll actually change the name of that because of the television show, but that got pushed back a while ago, but I think it's going to come back out hopefully over the summer. So that's going to be a nice little role for me.
Do you like watching yourself on TV?
I do.
I know some people, it's like, I can't look at myself on camera.
No, because I like to critique myself. It's like my wrestling matches. In my wrestling matches, I will I will watch a wrestling match with myself, and I'll pull it apart, and I'll watch it 20 times over again. Even things I do right, I'm like, how could I have done this better?
Yeah.
So I like to pick it apart. And there's a lot
That's
of
the
guys.
only way to get better.
Exactly. And I notice that
better.
with wrestling, is unfortunately, there's a lot of guys I give criticism to, and they don't want to hear it. You know, everybody wants to be told how great they are. They don't want to be told how much they suck or how bad they did.
That's what I tell young actors. I said, look, if you're going to believe the good theater reviews, you have to believe the bad ones, or at least accept that there may be something in there that you can learn from. It's the same thing.
100%.
You have to be able to accept the criticism.
Right, and you should feed off it. I've always fed off it. So when I do something, I'll give you an example. I went to a tryout with WWE in 2013. They kept me there for a week, and they kept just railing everybody. You did this, you did this, you did this wrong. And they would leave me alone. And I'd go over and I'd say, hey, you gave everybody else some criticism. You didn't say anything to me. It was, oh, everything you did was fine. I'm like, no. Can't be.
Yeah.
Tell me something.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I need to work on? And, I was kind of driving them crazy because they liked what I was doing.
Right.
But I'm still asking for them, hey, what can I do better?
And you're probably ahead of everyone else, but that's all relative.
Right.
We can always find ways to improve. There's, it's very rare that you have some kind of a perfect performance.
Yeah,
Those are rare.
100%.